Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to have our 11th session on public administration, and our topic will be public administration, accountability and control. Well, the basic sense of accountability and control in a type of state structure in which we are serving is already of that kind that your civil administration is answerable to the executives, and executive is answerable to the legislature, and the legislature is actually representing the public. It's the public who elect their representatives and they become the part of parliament. It's the parliament which elects the government, the Prime Minister and his cabinet, and they are answerable to the Parliament, and the public representatives in turn are taking control of the government, while each of the public administrator is answerable. Being an administrative head of a ministry or a department, he is answerable to his political head in the shape of minister. Minister who is in turn answerable to the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister and his cabinet is answerable to the Parliament. So it's the public control overall on the affairs of administration and the government. Before going into details of all these concepts, let's try to understand this concept of control and controlling. What control is? What controlling is? Negro says that process through which it is assured that a public official or an individual is meeting his responsibilities or not is control. Negro says that the process through which it is assured that whether an officer, official or individual is meeting his responsibilities or not is control. There can be so many methods of controlling anybody. What these methods can be? It can be a social control. It can be external control. It can be managerial control. So primarily, control is basically, it's a process through which it is assured that whether an individual, an officer or an official is actually meeting his responsibilities, his goals which are entrusted to him. There can be various methods of control, as I said, social control, external control, managerial control. There is a concept known as controlling function. What controlling function is? Controlling function is basically, controlling function is equal to your planned performance minus actual performance. That a person or individual or public official or officer is supposed to perform something that is the planned performance, minus his actual performance will be equal to the control function. What are the basic characteristics of controls? कि जो कंट्रोलिंग की एक्टिविटी है इसकी बेसिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं क्या? Keep in mind that controlling activity is always forward looking. The purpose of control is not to, create a hindrance for anybody. The purpose of control is always forward looking. It exists at each and every managerial level. It's a continuous activity and the purpose is always positive. कंट्रोलिंग को कभी भी नेगेटिव कनोटेशन में नहीं देखना आपने. अगर कंट्रोलिंग को नेगेटिव कनोटेशन में देखेंगे तो द पर्पस ऑफ कंट्रोलिंग है दैट इटसेल्फ विल बी लॉस्ट. इट इज एक्चुअली पॉजिटिव and it is destined to achieve the goals. Through controlling, actually, we are enforcing the people to achieve their goals. Right? So, your controlling is not a negative activity at all. Let's have some idea of the forms of controls. Primarily, there are three forms of controls. One is known as preliminary controls. Preliminary control means the controls which are applicable before the start of any operation. यानी किसी एक्टिविटी को शुरू होने से पहले जिन बेसिक पैरामीटर्स को देखना, जिन पॉलिसीज को, SOPs को, रूल्स को, रेगुलेशंस को किसी एक्टिविटी या ऑपरेशन के स्टार्ट होने से पहले अश्योर करना है, that is known as preliminary control. Let's take an example. We take an example of a flight operation. किसी फ्लाइट को फ्लाई करने से पहले जिन पैरामीटर्स को, जिन SOPs को, जिन रूल्स रेगुलेशंस को, जिन प्रिस्क्राइब्ड प्रोसीजर्स को इंश्योर करना है, that is known as your preliminary controls. Second one is concurrent control. Concurrent control is the controls which are applicable during the time of operation. यानी वो controls जो at the time of operation, concurrent activity, जब operation चल रहा है उस वक्त जिन activities का, जिन rules, regulations, SOPs या procedures का, जिन controls का अपनी जगह maintained होना जरूरी है, that is known as concurrent controls. And the third one is the feedback control. Then once the activity is complete, once the operation is complete, and you get the feedback of that operation to improve your performance next time, that is known as the feedback control. So as I said already, controlling is not a type of function with the prime objective is not to create a hindrance for any of the process. The prime objective remains the forward looking, the positivity. Actually, it helps to achieve our planned goals. As far as accountability is concerned, let's have some idea about accountability as well. Accountability क्या होती है और फिर more importantly administrative accountability क्या होती है? देखिए, दो टर्म्स हम आमतौर पर यूटिलाइज करते हैं, एक अकाउंटेबिलिटी, एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. We mostly utilize these two terms interchangeably. Well, the fact remains that accountability is something else. There is slight difference between these two concepts, and responsibility is something else. When I talk about accountability, I give you an example. If I am heading an organization and many of the people are working under me in that public office, everybody has got his own responsibility. I mean, a person who is supposed to carry a file from one office to another office, this is his responsibility. The man who is supposed to register any of the data coming from the external office to this office and from this office to all other offices, it is the prime responsibility of that person X. I mean, everybody may have his own responsibility, but I, being in charge of office, can be held accountable for any of the wrongdoings done on their part. That action is basically their own responsibility, but I, being the in charge of that office, can be held accountable for their actions. So the difference between accountability and responsibility, Professor Pfiffner has tried to clarify this concept in the same terms as I discussed you. So what administrative accountability is? Administrative accountability होती क्या है? Professor L.D. White is of the view, वो ये कहते हैं कि the sum total of all constitutional, let me tell you, the sum total of all constitutional, statutory, administrative and judicial, L.D. White कहते हैं the sum total of all constitutional, statutory, administrative and judicial rules and procedures plus established practices by means of which a public official is held accountable for their activities is known as administrative accountability. The sum total of all constitutional, statutory, administrative, judicial rules and procedures and established practices by means of which a public official can be held accountable for his activities is known as administrative accountability. What is meant by constitutional? All provisions laid by the Constitution are through some statute or act of the Parliament, are through some administrative directions, are through some judicial directions given by the honorable courts, rules and procedures जिनके जरिए यानी तमाम चाहे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल हूँ, स्टैट्यूटरी हूँ, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव हूँ, जुडिशियल हूँ, वो रूल्स और प्रोसीजर्स या इवन जो एस्टैब्लिश्ड प्रैक्टिसेस हैं जिनकी मदद से हम किसी भी पब्लिक ऑफिशियल को अकाउंटेबल ठहराते हैं फॉर द एक्शंस ही टेक्स इज नोन एज एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव अकाउंटेबिलिटी. व्हाई वी नीड अकाउंटेबिलिटी? क्यों जरूरत है हमें अकाउंटेबिलिटी की? देखिए, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है, नीड क्या है अकाउंटेबिलिटी का? एज आई सेड that your administration is basically working under the command of the political bosses. If there is no accountability structure for administration, then your administration will become despotic, usurpers of the rights of the people. To keep them custodians of the rights of the people, there must be some administrative accountability structure. Lord Beveridge ने कहा था कि democracy, if it knows its business, has no need to fear bureaucracy. We mostly listen this statement from the political bosses that this civil bureaucracy or even the military bureaucracy does not allow us to run the system. Beveridge is of the view that democracy, if it knows its business, has no need to fear bureaucracy. Let's try to understand the types of accountability. Primarily, there are two types of accountability. One is known as internal accountability, and the other is known as external accountability. As far as internal accountability is concerned, it is further divided into various concepts. Keep in mind that internal accountability is a regular process, continuous process. It goes on. It's not restricted to some special time, special day, special activity. It's a continuous, regular process in all administrative structures. But how it happens? The first thing, as I mentioned already, administrative process ही ऐसा है that your administration is continuously answerable to the political bosses. Number two, your admin is answerable to its chain of command, its hierarchy. Assistant Commissioner is answerable to his Additional Deputy Commissioner. He is further answerable to the Commissioner. He is further answerable to ACS. He is further answerable to Chief Secretary and then to Chief Minister ultimately. A section officer is answerable to Deputy Secretary, he to the Additional Secretary, he to the Special Secretary, he to the Secretary and then to the Minister and Chief Minister. So there is a continuous chain of command. So there is a hierarchical control on them. Then there is the concept of PER, Performance Evaluation Report, previously known as ACR, Annual Confidential Report. Each of a public administrator will be reported on in the shape of his performance evaluation report on annual basis. What he has done over a period of time under the reporting officer. And that reporting officer will be judging his work as in that particular incumbency. So that's a particular continuously check on that officer. Then the budgetary controls. None of the administrator is having absolute control of the budget in this sense. He is going to have budget in separate heads and he can't utilize beyond those heads. So the budgetary control on his powers. Then comes the professional ethics. Each profession has got its own ethics. A doctor must be having some ethics. Basic ethics of that profession. So that's a continuous check on you. Bureaucracy belonging to the elitist service in Pakistan is having their own professional ethics that work as a control on them. Administrative efficiency surveys. Your chain of command, your media goes for efficiency surveys of the officers, that how effectively they are working in a particular organization. So efficiency surveys are continuous check on them. And the last thing is administrative leadership. You have to lead from the front. You have to set examples for your subordinates. You have to show administrative leadership. So these are the 7 different gadgets through which your internal accountability process is continuously going on. Let's have some idea of the external one. The first thing, legislative control. The control of the parliament. Executive control. The control of the chief executive and his cabinet. Judicial control. The control of courts in Pakistan and public control. Now let's try to understand each of them separately. What is legislative control? देखिए, आपका जो पार्लियामेंट है, दैट इज द लेजिस्लेटिव, and that is a continuous check on your administration. How? Your house has got some basic modus operandi through which they can enforce their check on public administrators. For example, questions. Any of the member of the parliament can ask questions related to any of the administrative activity in whole of the Pakistan, and the minister concerned is bound to answer that questions raised by any of the member of the parliament, whether it's the central, the National Assembly, or the assembly of any of the province. The second thing, resolutions and motions on any of the topics, on any of the issue, any of the member of the parliament can come up with a resolution or motion that may be incorporated, that may incorporate in itself the problems related to any of the public administrator. Then there are debates and discussions in the house in which these public administration and their issues are discussed, and the speaker has got the authority to pass different rulings into that. Debates and discussions. Then, more importantly, your parliament can pass laws. Any act of the parliament, they can pass laws to increase further control on public administrators. Wherever they find any flaw in any of the rule, in any of the act of the parliament, in any of the law, they can pass new laws, they can amend laws. Then the house has got control of appropriations. The money can be raised by the parliament through applying taxes, and the same is dispensed with to the different departments of the government, which are ultimately utilized by the executive and civil bureaucracy. The authority lies with the house, that how much amount should be appropriated in a particular head of account. So they have got the complete control of appropriations. When this money is utilized, an agency of the parliament known as the Auditor General of Pakistan audits those funds, comes up with a report, sends that report to the President for the central government, federal government, and Governor for the provincial government. The same report is further sent to the Speaker of the Assembly and is ultimately discussed by the Public Accounts Committees in Federal Assembly, in the National Assembly, as well as in all of the provincial assemblies. So the audit and report is the control of the legislature, through which they can enforce their control on administration. Then comes the committees of the legislature. Your legislature has got various committees which are quite powerful to discuss any of the matter related to the administration of any part of the country, any subject, any department. These committees have the power to call the officers holding those positions in front of them, can pass directions, can bring the matters to the house. So your legislation is extremely powerful to hold your administration accountable. What are the weaknesses there? The problem lies that the size of administration is too large, and sometimes they remain unable to cover each and every activity performed by a public administrator. Number 2, your member of parliament, your MNAs, your MPAs are mostly not competent. They are the laymen, not understanding even their basic powers, not having even the understanding of all of these administrative and their legislative controls and how to execute those controls. So this remains another weakness. Third one, the MNAs and MPAs belonging to the treasury benches, belonging to the government, they don't criticize on anything, being part of the government. तो क्योंकि आधी से ज़्यादा पार्लियामेंट तो हुकूमत बनाती है, तो आधी से ज़्यादा पार्लियामेंट तो कोई बात ही नहीं करेगी, और बाकी जो अपोजिशन बचेगी, द अपोजिशन गोज फॉर क्रिटिसिज्म फॉर द सेक ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म, तो उनका फिर सही क्रिटिसिज्म को भी महज क्रिटिसिज्म ले लिया जाता है. So these are the basic weaknesses on the basis of which perhaps the legislative control remains unable to execute its powers the way it should have. Next comes the executive control. Executive control, the control of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. The government's control. They have got their own powers. Let's move one by one. First thing, policy making. Whatever the administration does, that's simply the implementing the policies of the executives. You formulate the better policies. You formulate the policies through which you can have better check on administration. Job done. So it's your prime ambit to come up with better public policies. Number 2, you are having whole of the budgeting system. Your Minister for Finance, the Finance Ministry or Finance Department makes the budgets. Then the same is approved by the Cabinet, brought to the legislation. So whole of the budgetary control, budgetary system is there in your control, and you being executive can control the conduct of administration through budgetary controls. Third, recruitment systems. All of the recruitment systems are basically under the control of the government. Even the commissions, the autonomous commissions, all of the rules and regulations are amended, formulated. Even the chairmen and members are appointed by the government. So you come up with the better reforms in the recruitment systems, come up with the better human resource in the public sector, which can be more helpful in implementation of the government's policies, executive policies. Then you got control of the staff agencies, whole of the staff agencies, like Planning Commission of Pakistan. You got all the capability, all the control, all the authority to come up with better planning in the country, and you control the conduct of your administration. Last thing, executive orders. Anything which is not covered by any rules and regulations, any laws prevailing in the country, you being the chief executive of a province or a country have got a special power to come up with some executive order wherever and whenever it is important, it is necessary, it is rationalized. So with all the powers the executive have, they may enforce their control on public administration. Let's move towards the third factor, the judicial control. Judicial control. First was legislative. Second was executive. And the third one is judicial. Well, as far as judicial control is concerned, just to keep the administration in a type of situation that it should not be the usurpers of the rights of the people. And if at any stage of any action being done by a public official, if any of the citizen is of the view that his basic rights are being brought into jeopardy, in those circumstances, your judicial powers are enforced. There have been the writ jurisdiction, where the courts can enforce their orders to regulate the conduct of the public officials. Let's discuss few of them. The first thing is habeas corpus. What is meant by it? Anybody who thinks that I have got a right for free movement can't be enforced by any of the person to be restricted to a particular place, जिसको हम हब से बेजा कहते हैं, तो वो शख्स कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ में जा सकता है और बताता है कि जी फलां पब्लिक ऑफिशियल ने मेरे इस बेसिक ह्यूमन राइट को डिविएट किया है, और कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ उस पर ऑर्डर्स पास करती है और उस शख्स की बेसिक आज़ादी को इंश्योर करती है। एग्जाम्पल देता हूं, हमारे यहां पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट्स मोस्टली लोगों को अरेस्ट करता है। लॉ के मुताबिक उन्हें विदिन 24 आवर्स उसको किसी रेलेवेंट कोर्ट में पेश करना है, उसके खिलाफ चार्जशीट को अदालत को बताना है और अदालत उसका फर्दर कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन डिसाइड करेगी एज पर लॉ। लेकिन अगर किसी शख्स को अरेस्ट किया जाए और उसका रिकॉर्ड ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड में ना लाया जाए कि शी हैज बीन अरेस्टेड, और उसको उसकी मर्जी के खिलाफ डिटेन रखा जाए, तो देन द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द हब से भेजा इलीगल डिटेंशन इज देयर। तो उससे मुतल्लिक कोई शख्स अदालत जा सकता है, अदालत ऑर्डर पास करती है, अपना ऑफिसर मुकर्रर करती है, उस शख्स को रिकवर करती है और वैसा शख्स जिसने वो एक्शन लिया है उसके खिलाफ लीगल तादीबी कार्रवाई करने का राइट रखती है। दिस इज नोन एज हेबियस कॉर्पस। सेकंड वन, मैंडेमस। मैंडेमस मीन्स that I, being a citizen of a country, have got a right as per the law of the country. मिसाल के तौर पे, God forbid, you get a theft at your house. This is your legal right कि आप उस थेफ्ट को अपने मुतलका थाने में रिपोर्ट करें, और आपके पुलिस स्टेशन को चाहिए कि वो आपकी FIR रजिस्टर करे और उस मामले पे तहकीकात करे और जो भी जिम्मेदार हैं उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई करे। लेकिन अगर कोई पब्लिक ऑफिशियल आपके इस बेसिक राइट को डिविएट करता है, तो फिर कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ रिट ज्यूरिसडिक्शन के तहत आपको ये राइट देती है कि यू गो टू कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ, टेल देम कि दिस पर्सन हु इज ऑथोराइज्ड, एम्पावर्ड एंड इज बाउंड कि वो मेरे इस बेसिक राइट के तहत फला एक्ट करे और वो नहीं कर रहा, तो then the court can order that public official to respond as per law and report to the court. यानी वैसी सिचुएशन में कि अगर कोई पुलिस स्टेशन आपके एफआईआर का इंदराज नहीं करता तो यू गो टू द कोर्ट अंडर दिस रिट पिटिशन ऑफ मैंडेमस and court orders that police station to report on the matter and send the copy of the FIR to that relevant court. This concept is known as mandamus. Third one, prohibition. In prohibition, what it does, it's the violation of the, basically prohibition means to prohibit someone to do something. यानी आपके खिलाफ किसी लोअर कोर्ट ने कोई एक्शन प्रपोज किया है और आप समझते हैं कि वो एक्शन जो आपके खिलाफ लोअर कोर्ट लेने जा रही है वो दुरुस्त नहीं है, वो अगेंस्ट द प्रोविजंस ऑफ लॉ है, तो आप उस पर्टिकुलर कोर्ट की ज्यूरिसडिक्शन की किसी सुपीरियर कोर्ट के पास जाते हैं और सुपीरियर कोर्ट प्रोहिबिट कर देती है, रोक देती है किसी लोअर कोर्ट को कोई एक्शन लेने से विदाउट वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ दोज फैक्ट्स, विदाउट वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर सर्कमस्टांसेस जिसमें कोई लोअर कोर्ट उसके खिलाफ एक्शन लेने जा रहा है या कोई ऐसी अथॉरिटी उसके खिलाफ एक्शन लेने जा रही है जो अथॉरिटी उसके बेसिक राइट्स को डिविएट कर रही है. तो दिस इज अनदर, so these are the, let's move on and then we discuss. Number 4, certiorari. To make certain, to ascertain. This is a type of writ petition where a higher court directs a lower court that in a particular case which you have heard, we have been reported that you have not ascertained the basic provisions of law in that particular case. So you are directed to ascertain the matter in person in light of the relevant provisions of the law and then report to our. In this case, in this particular case, there can be the quashment of the previous decision if the lower court has already taken. And the last thing is quo warranto. Quo warranto means that if a person holds an office, if a person tries to hold a public office to which he is not entitled, you can go to court, ask the court कि इस शख्स से पूछिए कि with what authority he is sitting in a public office. For example, अगर किसी पर्टिकुलर किसी पब्लिक ऑफिस में एक मैन with a power comes around and takes control of the office और जो उसका लीगल इनकम्बेंट है वो जाहिर बात है उससे उलझना तो नहीं चाहेगा. He can go to the court with this writ of quo warranto. Or like as we have many of the, जब भी किसी पब्लिक ऑफिस में in the office of the prime minister, if someone is going to come with force, then the similar writ petition is there जिसमें कोर्ट पूछती है उस शख्स से कि under what authority you are holding this office. So जैसे किसी पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर के ऊपर लेजिस्लेटिव कंट्रोल थे, एग्जेक्टिव कंट्रोल है, बिल्कुल पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स और उनके एक्शंस के अगेंस्ट आपके पास जुडिशियल रिट पावर्स हैं. सो दैट कि अगर कोई पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर, कोई ऑफिशियल किसी सिटीजन्स के बेसिक राइट्स को डिविएट करता है तो उन पर्टिकुलर सर्कमस्टांसेस में ये रिट पिटिशंस आपके सामने आती हैं. जहां तक रिट की तारीख है पाकिस्तान में, देखिए इन 1935 एक्ट जो कि आर्जी तौर पे पाकिस्तान का इब्तदाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन भी डिक्लेयर कर दिया गया विद सम अमेंडमेंट्स, उसमें तो सिरे से को रिट की पावर्स थी ही नहीं. एंड दैट इज क्वाइट अंडरस्टैंडेबल बिकॉज जो ब्रिटिश राज था वो तो यहाँ पे यूजर्पर्स ऑफ पावर्स थे, वो तो बेसिकली लॉ एनफोर्समेंट को इंश्योर करना चाहते थे। उनका पर्पस लोगों की बेसिक राइट्स का तहफ़्फ़ुज़ तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं था, लिहाजा 35 के एक्ट में ऐसी कोई रिट पिटीशन की प्रोविजन थी ही नहीं। 1954 में 233A के तहत रिट की पावर्स दी गई, लेकिन 1955 में ही फेडरल कोर्ट ने 233A को इनवैलिड डिक्लेयर करते हुए उसका खात्मा कर दिया। 1956 के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में there is a generous interpretation of the writ powers, in which the Supreme Court and High Courts were given the writ powers. But in 1962, initially there was no concept of writ power. This is quite alarming and quite understandable, the mentality of the ruler, that the 62 constitution was basically formulated by a military dictator, in which he initially didn't come up with any of the writ powers given to these courts, but later on the same powers were entrusted to the high courts. But 1972 का जो इंटरम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन था और फिर 1973 का जो रेगुलर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन था, उसके अंदर बाकायदा बड़ा कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव रिट पावर्स दी गई। द लास्ट वन इज द पब्लिक कंट्रोल। पब्लिक कंट्रोल किस तरह आपके पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स को चेक करता है? देखिए, वन इज द इलेक्शनिंग प्रोसेस। अगर यानी कई सारी दुनिया में ममालिक ऐसे हैं जहां पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स आर नॉट हेल्ड बाय अपॉइंटमेंट्स, they are held by elections, by the will of the people, the voting of the people. In Switzerland, the civil administrators are elected, not appointed. So, electioning element, public will, number two. And secondly, even where the public administrators are appointed, if the masses are not comfortable with the policies being implemented by the public administrators, that is basically because of the fact that the policies being formulated by the government are not correct. So the people can basically go against such policies and call for elections, call for fresh elections in the shape of recall. Right, she? And that recalling the election will itself work as a sieve. वो पॉलिसीज, वो लोग जिनको जनरल मैसेज एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली फिल्टर हो जाएंगे। तीसरा, प्रेशर ग्रुप्स। देयर आर वेरियस प्रेशर ग्रुप्स, मीडिया, लायर्स, some of the other pressure groups, they affect the public administrators. Then there are advisory committees. Who check the conduct of public administrators in the shape of CPLC. You must have listened this name very actively in Karachi. Citizen Police Liaisons Committee. And this concept was initially popularized in Punjab and other provinces as well. These advisory committees, there are representatives of the public. Public administrators also sit there. They discuss the various matters and try to find out some solution. Right? And they are actually having close coordination with the public administrators, and they try to come up with their own viewpoint, and it remains a check on public administration. Then the vigorous public opinion. If on any of the matter a public has an opinion, then that vigorous public opinion cannot be denied by the public administrators or even public representatives. You must be remembering that the people were demanding from the government that Pakistan should come up with nuclear tests. Government had to succumb to the pressure of the local masses, and ultimately they had to go for, and many of the other actions where the governments were not initially in mood to take an action, but a vigorous public opinion forced the governments, forced the public administrators to take actions which otherwise they were not wanting. So, in this discussion we can find that there is a comprehensive accountability structure of public administration in the shape of internal controls, internal accountability, in the shape of external accountability, in the shape of legislative, executive, judicial and public controls. Now, you may be surprising that if your public administration is being held accountable internally and externally with so many effective modus operandis available at legislative, executive, judicial and public level, then why we have not been able to find an administrative structure absolutely accountable to the masses or representatives of the masses? Keep in mind, an institutional structure cannot be effective to tone up the administration until administration itself is permeated with high ideals and carried forward with sense of dynamic purpose. Till the time your internal controls are not strong enough, where you think yourself accountable, where you transform your thought of not being ruler but the servants of the state, only then your sense of accountability will work. That's all for today on public administration, control and accountability. Thank you.
मार्क्स पडले का आपला ते बरं का